Welcome to CMO Huddles Studio, the live streaming show dedicated to inspiring B2B flocking awesomeness. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, live from my home studio in New York City. Today, we're diving into a topic that's not just on everyone's radar and every CMO's radar. It's on every QBR, every board report, every budget plan for 2026. And of course, I'm talking about generative AI. Now, let's be clear, this isn't another hand-wavy AI will change everything episode. We're not here to marvel at ChatGPT's latest poetry ability or nano banana infographics, although they are pretty cool. We're here to answer the big practical questions. How should CMOs prioritize Gen AI across people, process, and tech right now to win in 2026? Such an easy question. This is going to be a piece of cake for the guests. This episode will ground you in what's working, what's worth piloting, and what to avoid. Because let's face it, Gen AI is no longer optional, but it doesn't mean throwing spaghetti at the proverbial tech stack to see what sticks. With that, let's bring on Yalif, Chief Evangelist of Webflow, and a returning guest who has previously appeared on the show to discuss product launches. Hello, Guy. How are you and where are you this fine day?
Hey, Drew. I am flocking awesome, and I am in San Francisco Bay Area in Burlingame.
All right. Well, I set this up with some pretty high, lofty goals, but, you're embedded in MarTech. You're deep in the space. Where should CMOs focus their energy around AI in 2026? I know it's a hard question, but I bring some clarity to this big old world.
To your joke earlier, you could take this in a million directions. I think 2026 is the year where CMOs widely move from random acts of AI to operational excellence. How? Well, I think by now most teams already have access to AI tools. Far fewer know how to use the tools well and safely. And in 2026, I think that gap is going to matter a lot and create a unique opportunity for us as CMOs to lead real AI adoption across our companies. I think our successful peers, they're going to stop.
Not just yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I interrupted. Keep going.
No, I think our successful peers will stop treating AI adoption. You mentioned people, process, and tech. They'll stop treating it as tech and start treating it as a major change management effort and guide their teams through at least what I've seen as 6 stages of AI fluency. 1, approval, where you get sort of legal security, privacy guardrails in place, like it's required. 2, people start playing. Everyone's encouraged to get hands-on and experience experimenting with LLMs and marvel, as you said. 3, organization, where you get some AI councils, training, and you point the LLM work at business goals. Then I've seen people go to 4, where AI is used to automate existing tasks, saving time. 5, where AI now automates those same tasks, but at like superhuman scale, enabling you to do things you just couldn't do before because they weren't scalable enough. And the last is genuinely new workflows that emerge where AI wasn't possible before. And I think a lot of words are being written about number 6, but I think there's a journey to take our teams through to get there.
Yeah, well, wow. Okay, that was a lot to cover. And I want to sort of build on some of these things and skip over others. But so clearly the training part of this, there's lots of access to the tools, but the training part is shortcoming. So at least specifically, what are you doing and with your team and so forth to make sure that people know how to use these teams so you can keep moving up this ladder, if you will?
We keep experimenting. We're doing a lot. So we do have AI councils that first worked through the approvals and now are trying to shine a spotlight on things that are working for dual purpose. One is, oh, hey, Joe or Jane created this custom GPT that does X. You may want to use it. That's purpose 1. And purpose 2, to help inspire everybody's thinking to see, hey, what could I do and go create that would be useful that this inspired me to do? So that's one. Two, we're doing AI 101, prompting 101 internally. And three, we've added it to our reviews, like the rubric for reviews, the rubric for hiring. And next year it will be tied directly, sort of as we all do, 100% investment, what investment are you making and what are you getting out of it? Because it is such a big effort.
And you mentioned that the CMO is in position not just to lead their departments in this transformation, but the organizations. We've talked a little bit about this over the year. I want to believe that CMOs are doing that. I don't know if in fact that's happening. I know like at KPMG, Lauren Boyman is doing that and has been for they actually created an AI task force 2 years ago and she is leading it as the CMO. So, and that's a big company, but I don't know that many other examples. Are you seeing CMOs who are stepping over and helping the company with their adoption plans?
Some, Sydney Sloan has done a great job at G2. I've seen others where they've first, in general, sort of gotten our own house in order, where they've gotten the marketing team up to a higher level, and rather than saying, "I'm going to now foist this on everybody else," waited for the pull, waited for other orgs to say, "Ooh, that looks good. Can you help us?" Which, in my humble opinion, is probably the right strategy in most organizations. I also think the reframing of this away from a technical problem, there are real technical things to solve. But for us as leaders, I think there's just as much, if not more, around the change management and people and how they feel and how they think about these things and raising everybody's AI fluency. I think that makes it applicable across the entire org, because we know as marketers, our org is affected as much or more than any other org in the company.
And there's certainly an expectation, for better or worse, that this is suddenly going to make marketing 25 to 50% more efficient. And those conversations are happening. Whether or not CMOs, excuse me, actually know how to do that, that's a whole different issue and option. You talked at the very beginning about approvals and mentioned privacy, training, safety, that kind of thing. And with a lot of the technology being adopted on an individual level as opposed to a corporate level, as happened like with laptops and cell phones and all those other things. And that was really good because you got people to do it. The minute you bring in IT and say, wait, you can only use this one and you can only use that one, it's somehow in like you have a Microsoft shop and they can only use Copilot. There's constraints that come in here. I guess the question that I'm trying to get at is balancing that out with forward progress.
We experienced that very directly at Webflow. There very much was a push and pull. So early on, and I know early and late is measured in months in this space, IT and the corporate AI council, we have a go-to-market one separately, but approved a handful of tools, very small list. People eventually did exactly what you said. They adopted from the bottom up. They went off the reservation, and the central team, to their credit, said, we need to enable this. We need to move faster rather than constraining everybody else all the time. And so there has to be some balance, because we are not putting any customer data, any financial data, any sensitive data in any of these places where something else might be trained. So after some time, they introduced a fast track approval specifically for Gen AI related tools or features of existing tools that reduced what can be a pretty long procurement process to a few days to get a preliminary green light. They dramatically improved and lengthened that list and keep doing so all the time. Huge credit to them. They also then said, hey, there is a grace period that's going to end. And after this grace period, you need to be using the approved tools, to the point where they centrally enforced it. Literally, I happen to use Granola. Granola, I enjoy as a product. Turns out that's not one they've approved yet. And at some point, my computer said to me, you can't do anything until you take this off. Here are some other ones you can use. And maybe one day they'll approve granola. Nothing good or bad about granola. It's just, so they shifted from, here's some rules. Everybody did their own thing. Okay, we're going to move faster. And grace period is over. Now a rapidly iterating, improving list, but you need to stick on the list.
Okay, now I'm going to skip ahead to this sort of the biggest thing that you brought up, which is so clear, is the change management aspect of this. There were early adopters. There were obviously people who resisted. There's still people at lots of companies that are saying, but wait, what about all the water usage or the electrical usage of all the AI? And, it's using so much. And it's funny, I've been listening to some podcasts that as a person who works with green building and understands a fair amount of this, it's not as simple as folks might want to believe it. There's this is going to be a hard technology to stop, but there are individuals and companies that don't want to use it because of that. And I guess that's a personal choice, but a company is going to struggle to if their employees don't adopt it pretty quickly. So I'm curious in that part of change management, if you've run into that, and seen that out there and how folks are dealing with that. Because it's like suddenly someone saying, I'm sorry, we're not going to use a car because I love my horses.
I think the metaphors are apt. I have not seen this. Webflow has not, as a business, had delved into this. As an individual, I've heard other people talk about it externally. And I think the metaphors you're drawing are apt. This is so transformational. It is, on the one hand, few times in a career where you get a change this big. And on the other hand, this one's actually bigger than all the other ones we've experienced. And so I am with you. I think there are few roles where people will be able to, again, this is not a Webflow opinion, this is a Guy opinion, but be able to be effective at the level their peers are in other companies without embracing some form of this. And as an individual who cares about the planet, I'm happy that there are other versions of models coming out there and other ways to tackle this, which, to your point, it's not as simple. It's not as straightforward. There are a lot of people thinking very hard about that part of the problem.
Right. Okay. Well, with that, thank you for that. I have lots more questions, but we'll bring on Andy Day, who is the CMO of Lightbeam Health Solutions, who is joining the show for the very first time. Hello, Andy, and welcome.
Hey, Drew, thank you for the invitation. Very excited to be here. These are exciting times.
Where are you and how are you?
I'm doing well. Looking forward to the holiday season and an impending, pilgrimage to Sevilla, Spain in mid-January. I'm in Dallas, Texas.
Got it. Oh, well, very exciting. Yeah. Haven't been to Sevilla. Okay, you heard a lot about what Guy had to say. What's your overall outlook on how AI will reshape marketing next year, and already, it's probably a continuation of how you're seeing it being reshaped right now?
Yeah, if I may start with a bit of controversy. So Gen AI is dead, dying, or being subsumed by agentic AI and AI agents, right? Which is all about process, workflow, automation, which is where we're starting to, we're actually going to see lower human intervention. We're going to see efficiency, productivity, especially for repetitive tasks, and that's where the action is moving to, right? So I think from an overarching perspective, as Guy alluded to, you're going to see this haves versus have-nots from an AI perspective. You're going to see there's a 5-stage. I have a 5-stage life cycle, right, of AI adoption. It'll start with augmentation. It'll start with prescriptive analysis, where there was descriptive analysis in the previous generation, if you will. We're going to see the emergence of co-pilots, right, or assistants, which are still going to be in the Gen AI realm, right, for self-service. But that's where we're seeing this exciting transition to agentic AI, where in terms of exception management of processes, right, then total automation, which will potentially demand very little human intervention, right, just for governance and oversight. And the holy grail, where the arms race is being waged, is this notion of artificial general intelligence, or AI singularity, where AI pretty much senses its ecosystem, can adapt and run on autopilot. So in the healthcare industry, we're not going to see much of that. But again, the self-driving cars is probably the only example we can talk about. But that's kind of the transition. So from a marketing perspective, while we have obviously Gen AI for research and authoring content, white papers, blog posts, social media posts, that's fairly ubiquitous. Personalizing web experiences, buyer personas at scale is something I'm excited about. We are already using Gen AI for responding to RFPs, RFQs. And then this exciting node of, kind of bringing in vibe coding in a marketing context, from ideation to publication in hours with tools like Lovable. Agentic AI is opening up whole new possibilities, right? Conversational AI agents and chat bots for prospect engagement, de-anonymizing website visitors, right? With tools like Qualified and Warmly. Salesforce just announced it is going to be acquiring Qualified. The notion of conversational AI agents actually supplanting SDRs or BDRs, right, is one we are looking at. We have human BDRs today, external BDRs. AI agents for personalization of cold call emails at scale is something we are literally on the brink of adopting. AIO, right? Using AI to craft your AIO, GIO from SEO, I think is a huge area that a lot of marketers are going to be focused on.
Okay, wait. You throw way too much at us. I gotta stop you because it's way too much. And this is, I think, fundamentally the problem that CMOs are facing is there's too much. There's so many things. And one of the things that we're trying to do on the show is get them to focus. And you can't do all of those things, right? You just can't do all of them all at once, and nor should you. That's not the definition of strategy. Is what do you say no to?
Absolutely.
So we got to focus. And so I want your help because I know you know a lot about this. And so let's talk about specifically what you're doing and where you see, you mentioned agentic. So do you have agents working for you right now? And if so, what do those look like? So let's be as specific as we can relative to what you are doing, not the universe, because we can't boil that ocean on this show.
So surprisingly, we are doing a little bit of everything I mentioned, but I think core use cases today, I can't afford to hire a competitive intelligence analyst. So I literally have an agent that does competitive intelligence for us already in place, right? Using AI agents for cold call email personalization at scale, I think is a huge application. So that's something we are deploying, based on intent insights as we speak.
Okay, let's stop on that one for a second. Are you doing that in-house or are you working Amanda Kayla OneMind is, creating the superhuman SDRs. In fact, she's going to be doing the roadshow with us in the strategy lab that we're doing in February. Are you looking at this these sort of robotic SDRs are you building them yourself?
No, there are platform as a service tools, right? So
right.
The stack is a combination of Salesforce, ZoomInfo, and this tool called lavender.ai, right? So it's that stack that we are literally putting into place. We are integrating it ourselves with the help of our IT. In fact, our VP of demand gen is doing that. So we are literally doing that. We also have access. I have a friend who's turned into a kind of a Gen AI, agentic AI consultant who can literally help us create custom solutions at will at very competitive prices. So it's that combination of buy and then adapt and customize.
So okay, so we've got you mentioned you've got agents for competitive intelligence. I think that's one that folks sort of see as that's sort of GPT on steroids, right? And we're talking about cold calling and personalized cold calling.
Yes,
that is certainly personalizing at scale is something that we have all as marketers been wanting to do. Absolutely. So that we would stop getting emails that said, hello, name.
Exactly.
But it's interesting to me that I can't say I have seen dramatic improvement in personalization yet. And part of the problem seems to be the data that you really, to do it well, you kind of need first party data, or you need something that is able to sort through some of the nuances of being a human and what you're connected with. So I'm curious, have you been able to implement the personalization to scale, or is this the promise of it that you're hoping to test in 2026?
We have literally integrated it. We are waiting to deploy it, right?
Okay.
So here, the notion is this platform, if we are targeting, Drew, it'll look up your LinkedIn profile, look at what do you do for a living, what are you passionate about, what do you write about, what do you respond to, and based on that, craft a subject line and email that will intuitively resonate with, because it's about you. It's not one size fits all. And tie that, part of the AI enablement is tie that to the value proposition of the solution we are presenting with the potential ROI. Think about how much that's a game changer, right? Relative to the hey, hello, name nonsense.
It is and here's I'm getting, so I have a podcast, and it's called Renegade Marketers Unite. The show, in fact, actually goes out on that podcast. Guest PR people will use a bot to research the show and say, hey, I loved what you said on this show about this thing. It's so obviously generative AI that they've never read it, and they don't. And then they pitch a CFO who's working in B2C. So clearly they didn't quite get, we're only CMOs and we're only B2B, but they,
exactly.
but they got some other nuances, and they pretended like they had listened to the show. And so it felt, and I know they're using generative AI because I know the tools out there do this. So there's still a disconnect, because I'm not persuaded this bot didn't really understand, but they did put words together that seemed like they made sense. So it'll be really interesting. We'll have to come back in 6 months to see that this level of personalization actually worked.
I'll give you an example. So I moonlight as a Bollywood DJ for Friends, right?
I love it.
So I got this email from this platform called Qualified, which does this. It said, hey, DJ Fever, where's your next gig, right? In my business email in feed. So guess what? I opened it up, and then it went into, again, it clearly had done its research, connected my Bollywood DJing with my thought leadership on AI, and then said, hey, imagine if you could do this with every other prospect you're looking at. Wouldn't that be worthwhile? So should we talk? So I think it's getting to that level of intelligence, intuitiveness, and resonance is the key.
That's so interesting. I want to share it's not intelligence, it's just putting words together, but it somehow looks like intelligence. So
exactly.
We'll see.
Yeah.
And there is a difference.
Exactly.
And so we'll see. I'm holding out for humans somewhere in this thing. And I'm not being a Luddite here. I just do think that the personalization at scales implies that there isn't a human in the loop. And if there's a human in the loop, then that human is, and they're not reading every email, then we're at this place where someone's getting an email that is not relevant to them. But maybe
the human in the loop is training the agents. There's a lot of upfront training and learning that needs to be done. And that's where, again, having product marketers, provide the positioning, messaging, here are the key differentiators, here's what resonates with your prospects. I think that's where the human element comes in, and a process of oversight, right? Hey, is this actually working? Put in a feedback loop, and how do you refine and learn from every experience?
Yeah, I love it. And again, I think what you're implying is that you don't necessarily deploy this to 100,000 people day one.
Not at all.
You work your way up and validate and so forth. Okay, got it all. So much more to cover. This is an impossibly large task, but I appreciate you focusing on those two things. We're now going to bring in the very patient Kevin Briody, who is a fractional marketer at DisruptedCMO and an industry expert who's graced our stage before, to delve into many topics, including ed tech, strategic focus, and funnel strategy. Hello, Kevin. Wonderful to see you again.
Likewise, Drew. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, man, thank you for your patience. How are you and where are you this fine day?
I'm doing great. Looking at your background, I feel bad. I don't have my little penguin display from CMO Huddles here. I do have my world's greatest CMO coffee mug that you guys sent me back there. So
all right.
I am in a kind of chilly North Carolina right now, and I'm doing well.
All right. Well, hopefully, maybe we'll see you on the road show. So,
Yeah.
let's talk about the category you've spent a lot of time in. What's AI integration look like now, and where do you think it's headed in 2026?
Well, it's interesting listening. Coming in third on this is always fun because you get to just furiously take notes from what Andy and Guy were saying. I think, and they made some great points, and I think they covered a lot of my background in ed tech, and then broadly what we're all seeing in the industry. I think that it has really gone from AI adoption as being kind of a science project or innovation around the edges. A lot of people personally getting familiar with ChatGPT or Claude or some of the other individual platform tools, and then pulling that into isolated projects within a lot of companies. And I think what we're starting to see, I think Guy covered it well, which was we're starting to see more of the operationalization.
Operationalizing,
Ooh,
yes.
that
Oh,
was a
that's a
tough
hard
one.
one.
Of AI in a lot of marketing teams. I do think the last conversation that Andy brought up really, when you talk about 2026, is I think it's something that is not being covered enough, and I'm glad you all brought it up, which is I think it's the human element here is the wild card, and I think it's not just how it's viewed, like Guy said, as a change management issue and how it's received. I do think AI, for many parts of the marketing profession, is still viewed by employees as something of an existential job threat. And that's a huge challenge that we as a profession, as we as marketing leaders, still very much need to focus on. But I also do think the customer is a big wild card here for exactly the points you brought up. I think this idea of insincere or even invasive personalization that could come up. I think this idea of brand voices getting essentially smoothed out because everyone's using the same algorithms and the same platforms. This idea of, you could get I call it the efficiency temptation, this idea of we could do so much more for so much less. Let's put using AI, churn out more content, churn out more emails, do all this great personalization. I think that could easily get run amok, and you're running into an issue where I think that all that great personalization could actually result in our core buyers further tuning us out or pushing us back because of the potential of AI. And I think that is the central challenge as we look to 2026 for marketing leaders, is this idea of finding that balance, keeping the human in mind, and not getting so focused on the potential of the technology that things go a little bit out of control.
Yeah. It is a moment, and there's so many competing forces on this, and where CEOs and CFOs are as it's all about efficiency, and it's about this quarter. So I don't, and maybe this is a question: is there a world in which a CMO is not embracing this technology to its fullest extent in their departments and in their companies?
I think it's fair to say that if you're not, as a CMO, embracing it, you're going to face a hard road. I think in pretty much every company every CMO I've spoken to, and every leader in pretty much any department, the pressure is on, from the board, the CEO, the CFO, is to, it is a transformative technology. I think, as maybe Andy said, we're at this inflection point now. It's a massive transformation in our profession. So I don't think there's a thing where a CMO is going to get away very long with not actively embracing AI, or at least, committing to fully exploring its potential within their organization. I think my point is you can do that, but at the same point, it has to go back to some leadership fundamentals and also just good old marketing fundamentals of really paying attention to customer reaction, how customers are connecting with this kind of technology that we're putting out, and not just getting too enamored with the raw potential of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to a tech person last night at an event, and often folks will say, gee, I don't want to deal with a bot. I want to talk to a human. But there are circumstances, it's 2 a.m. and you want to go into detail, and a human may not be available because they're not outsourcing it to India, the thing. And you can get a bot that's very useful. And if it's really good at it's like a godsend at that moment. It's quite useful. So I do think that there are going to be incredible opportunities for some of the, particularly repetitive tasks to turn it over to the bots and embrace all of that. The leadership part is really interesting to me because we're talking about change management. We're talking about adoption and training. We're talking about how much skills do the CMOs themselves have to upskill? Like, does every CMO need to learn to vibe code?
I think it's funny. It's by the way, to your original point about that idea of automating certain experiences. My favorite example is actually, weirdly enough, here in North Carolina, the DMV has to renew your driver's license, to renew your car registration. A couple of years ago, they put out a chatbot, which is very smooth, works perfectly every time, and it saves you from having to do any sort of human interaction. But that's a welcome experience, and that, I think, it's a super simple but a great example of, there are some of those interactions where automating it with AI or even simple chatbots, I think, is incredibly valuable. But no, I think to the larger point, it is it is a fundamentally human issue about kind of training. I do think it's thinking about kind of your employees, how they're reacting to this, how they're embracing it, supporting them. I do think it is from a customer level too. I do think I've in the back of my mind, I rattle around this idea that made by humans, it will be something of a premium brand differentiator going forward. I do think as we start to see some of that pushback, and more importantly, brands who will take it too far. I think you see brands testing the waters, like Coca-Cola with their famous AI-generated Christmas ad, and just trying to see what the reaction was. I do think you're going to start to see this idea of a little bit of a flip backwards, where some of the under the covers automation will be heavily involved with AI, but a lot of the customer interactions, there's going to be a bit of a push and pull going on, where this idea of, I can actually speak to a human, or I know that content was crafted by humans, that is going to be a differentiator, or something that'll be at least be valued in some cases.
It's funny. I am every week I write my Saturday editorial, or rant, if you will, on LinkedIn, and 99% of those have been, every single word I wrote. And then every once in a while I get a little lazy and I'll say 70% human made or something. And I've been using whatever the percentage roughly is. It hasn't mattered.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't gotten dinked when it was 50% versus 90% versus it's really about the strength of the arguments and the ideas that are put forth, which is, so again, there's a human editor, and that's ultimately what determines that. But let's get pragmatic for a second. What are you seeing? What are you working on right now with these tools that you think every CMO is going to have to do in 2026 if they're not doing it already?
Well, I do think it is looking to 2026. I think for every CMO, it's being very, very careful about your tool and platform selection. I think in 2025, there's just been this massive level of experimentation. I mean, during this podcast, I was jotting down some of the apps that some of the other speakers we're talking to as things I got to go play around with. I think that has been incredible over the last year. I think we're going to continue to see that. However, I think there's also going to be a pretty good vendor shakeout. So that is something that I think is going to be really important for CMOs to focus on as AI starts moving from the edges into the core MarTech stack. It becomes more and more mission critical. And at that point, we have to be a little bit more discerning about the strength, the staying power, the longevity, the financial health of some of these apps and platforms that we're betting on. I do think there's a lot of debate on some of these pure AI wrappers that have gotten some good traction. but do they have long-term staying power?
Yeah.
And I think that is, if I was, I'm on the consulting side now, but if I was in a CMO role right now, I think it would be embracing AI, keeping that human balance I talked about, but also as you're pulling it into the tech stack, really being discerning and really kind of looking at some of these cool AI applications and tools with a little bit more of the discerning eye that you would otherwise look at some of your enterprise
Right.
tech.
Yeah, and that is it's a good point. And I think the one way that the CMOs can protect themselves is, no long-term contracts, monthly deals if you can, because
definitely.
you may throw some things away. It's tricky though from a training standpoint and so forth, because there are a lot of the standardization thing. The people who have Copilot and are like a Microsoft shop and are stuck, or the people who are Google and we're all Google, and finally Gemini 3 came along and made it. These are hard choices, because you could be left behind. You're safe with Microsoft, but right now you're struggling to do a lot of the things that Guy and Andy were talking about. All right. Well, so is there another specific thing that we should just sort of say, I'm excited about this one thing?
Well, I think I think it was Andy who really just hammered on agentic AI. I do think that is the real big potential. We've seen a lot with regards to the creative side, content production, using AI as a strategy brainstorming tool or a planning tool. I do think is this automation and real automation through agentic AI that is going to be very powerful this year. So I think where my head is really trying to get up to speed on that, see where the potentials are, see who's experimenting the most. But I do think there's so much of just the churn of the work that happens in any marketing organization, on the production side, on the planning, on the media side, that really could be handled through intelligent agents. And I do think that is a massive opportunity. So it's that core automation challenge as the tools become more mature that I think we're going to see a lot of the real benefit this year.
Got it. Okay, perfect. With that, it is time for me to talk about CMO Huddles. We launched in 2020, and it's the only community of flocking awesome B2B marketing leaders, and that has a logo featuring a penguin. You may have heard Guy was looking for this earlier. Well, a group of these curious, adaptable, and problem-solving birds is called a huddle. And the leaders in CMO Huddles are all that and more, huddling together to conquer the toughest job in the C-suite. So Guy, Kevin, Andy, you're all incredibly busy marketing leaders. I'm wondering if you could share a specific example of how CMO Huddles has helped you. Well, anybody want to volunteer?
Yeah,
I can go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I think this is a privilege being on the same conversation with Guy and Kevin. And the fact that we all approach it, we're seeing the big picture, but yet approaching it with very different, complementary yet different approaches, I think is so very valuable. So learning from each other is the reason I'm with CMO Huddles. And Drew, thank you for bringing this community together.
Oh, my pleasure. So happy you're here with us. Okay, Guy, your turn.
I think we are in this period of not once in a career, but just a few times in a career level of massive change where our playbooks, they either don't apply or they need a lot of reframing and updating. CMO Huddles, this incredible community you've built, has helped me get a read on the market, has helped me learn, especially on AI fluency and AEO, both of which affect all of us, to understand what other people are doing, to have the real candid conversations and compare notes. You've not just brought people together, you've also been candidly a great connector between the individuals wrestling in that particular moment with similar things.
Well, thank you for that. And appreciate your thought leadership in the AEO area. And it is so interesting because it's this exciting moment, and we really need to hear from the CMOs who are at the forefront making interesting things happen. And Kevin, feel free to chime in if you want to share something.
Yeah, I think as others have said, but it's really this idea of what I found very valuable is a lot of the conversations that happen within the CMO Huddles community through some of the different huddles and through the Slack channel and things like that. This idea of essentially helping us as marketing leaders cut through some of the vendor speak to really understand what other people are experiencing, how they're solving some of these problems, and really just get right to the core of what's helpful and what's not. So I think that's been a tremendous value to me for the number of years that I've been involved in the community.
And we so appreciate having you and Andy and Guy. If you're a B2B marketing leader who wants to build a stronger peer network, gain recognition as a thought leader, and get your very own Stress Penguin, please join us at cmohuddles.com. Okay, we don't have a lot of time left, and we need to be geniusly focused somehow to get some takeaways here for our fellow CMOs in this world. So we talked about change management. We've talked about what is one thing that a CMO could do right now that would help the company move forward. And maybe that's too broad a thing. So I'm going to go back to you, Andy, and talk about agentic for a second. You've mentioned a couple examples. Is there wrapping your mind around agentic? It's not just, I'm going to go build this. You and I necessarily, because there might be API. It's complicated stuff. It's tech support stuff. What do we need to know, and how do we focus our resources to make sure in Q1 and Q2, if we go down the agentic route, that we're going to build something that's going to come out the other side and be worth the time?
I have a very simple framework, right, that gets you away from being enamored with the technology and really focus and prioritize your attention. It's why, what, how, and then the so what. What is the ROI and the value that you'll see from this use case, from this deliverable, or what you are doing? And that's true for AI or any new technology in innovation across any industry. Don't be enamored on the technology. Have a clear path in terms of why are you doing it, what is the problem you're solving, how are you going to do it. That's where, again, not just Gen AI or agentic AI. Treat it like a portfolio. It's a portfolio of technologies, and always be guided by the so what. What is the value that people who are using it, the buyer persona, user persona, is going to derive from this?
I love it. That makes total sense. We have a nice little framework. And the thing that's interesting about the what, and this is where, in order to ask smart whats, you have to be pretty knowledgeable about at least somewhat about the art of the possible.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that's tricky right now, because there's a lot of things, and part of the excitement here is that we want to do what isn't possible or what we couldn't do before. So I'm curious, Guy, as you're thinking about that framework, how do we we can identify a problem, but we can't always identify the potential solution. We can sort of imagine, wouldn't it be cool if? I'm curious how you're grappling with that.
I feel like this is the ultimate curiosity moment where, the learning curve for everyone from kindergartner to CMO and CEO is like this. Mm-hmm. And I think you nailed it. It is what is possible. There are a set of constraints we've all grown to accept.
Exactly.
Sometimes people are like, AI will get rid of all of those. That's just not true. And so to have a point of view, to see examples from elsewhere around your org, to have that then spark ideas on the team where they're like, well, gosh, if that constraint's broken, I can go do this that much better. I feel like that's the iterative, nonlinear, harder to predict place we are in. And to have that work well, you got to focus on the people so that they feel safe, emotionally safe, and see this is going to be a superpower for them rather than some existential threat. Then they will make those connections and produce great things.
Yeah, and the safety part is hard to, you can foster it as much as you want. That's what leaders do, right? You have to create this safe space for people to experiment and fail to get to some of these things. It's interesting. Okay. Let's see, we've talked about the framework, Andy. Practical example, we've talked a little bit about mass personalization. Is there another agentic application that you're excited about that we haven't talked about that you plan to experiment on in 2026?
I think the AIO GEO one is big, right? Because we've all been in that SEO sandbox, if you will, right? And it's the rules of the game are just being changed, right? How do you ensure? I mean, 70% of your buyers, this is the big aha. AI is the new UI. So your buyers are actually looking for you via prompt. And the question is, do you have the content? Are you going to be found? Are you going to be rank ordered by ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity to ensure that your buyers come looking for you versus the legacy SEO rules which just don't hold anymore. So AI is the new UI, right? Is a big mantra to wrap your mind around.
So, and funny, Guy and I can go at length at this one. We've talked about it at length, and I'm not quite. I can't agree with you on the SEO is dead. I can't agree with you on the fact that the SEO rules don't matter, because they still do matter, and that often there is an intersection between AEO and SEO. The question I have, and maybe Guy, is, are you saying that we're going to use AI to get us to perform better with AEO, or we're just being aware of AEO and we're going to do all the things that we need to do, whatever the people think at this moment are the best practices to improve your site visibility in LLM? I wasn't sure, Andy, if you were saying use AI to solve the AEO problem, or just be aware of AEO and GEO.
No, the first, use AI to understand what your gaps are. And how can you still be, obviously SEO is not going away, but how do you embrace the world of AIO and GEO?
Interesting. Do you want to build on that, Guy?
Sure thing. I agree with you, Drew, a ton that AEO is close to SEO for a whole variety of reasons. And I agree with Andy that AI can be very helpful there with the human in the loop. I actually think one of the ways to raise AI fluency is directly relevant here, where you can lower the bar for your team by not having them need to learn a bunch of new things. Ask them questions they're used to answering all the time. Do it in context for what they're familiar with. Bring to the point we were hearing earlier from Kevin, their brand essence, so that you don't lose that in this sea of sameness. That then can do just what Andy said. Should I be creating some content? Can you help me start creating that content more effectively? Can you auto-generate a bunch of stuff I used to need to go to an engineer to auto-generate, like the metadata LLMs so value to understand structure and meaning of content? So I think there is a play here that is very helpful and elevates the org without relinquishing control.
Interesting. And it's funny because as many times as we've talked about AEO, we haven't actually connected the dots that AI is going to also help you with AEO. And it's obvious that it could, because it can do gap analysis. So you can find spaces that, just as you would with SEO, right? But you could do that probably faster. And you can educate your GPT on brand. And then you can auto-generate these Q&As using the information from your employees. It's all in here and just getting it out there. So all of that makes sense. And then, of course, we've talked a little bit about the technical aspects of AEO. And I do want to say that I'm a firm believer in, you would be silly not to put a certain amount of energy into AEO next year if you haven't already. That would be a big mistake, because we're all using LLMs more than for all sorts of things. Whether or not you should spend a lot of time getting employees actively involved in Reddit and some of the other things that are the rabbit holes that you could go down to try to build your AEO is a subject for debate, I think, at the moment. I got a thumbs up for Guy on that one. All right. Again, I just such a broad topic. We've done this. I want to let's get to some final words of wisdoms for other CMOs when it comes to, and we'll call it AI readiness. 2026, there is not going to be an aspect of your job and your world that will not be impacted by AI. I believe that to be true. Let's give folks some final words of wisdom. And Kevin, you get to go first on this one.
Yeah, I think it's final words of wisdom, I would say, is 2025 has been a big year of disruption and experimentation. 26 as you've heard on here, is I think really, and we all agree, is really about essentially operationalizing AI and really ingraining it into your marketing team. But I do think it is really, I would recommend that CMOs look at it as a cultural and people challenge as much as anything else for 2026. I think it is really helping people understand how AI is additive and supports them and is not something they need to fear as it's going to replace them. And that's a huge challenge because obviously CMOs are under pressure for cost reduction and things like that. But I do think it's fundamentally, as Guy said at the very beginning of the call, it's a change management challenge. I think it's a cultural challenge. I think really focus on your people and really that idea of let's ingrain this as part of our production processes, as part of our core automation, and at the same time still keep some of that spirit of the art of the possible, that wild innovation and experimentation that we've seen so much of this year. And it's a cultural thing more than anything else. So keep your eye on the ball, and that's just classic leadership challenge.
It is. So it's leading the humans to think of these as augmentation opportunities as opposed to replacements. Okay, cool. Let's see. Andy, you're up.
Absolutely. So I think never before have CMOs been asked to do so much with so little. And I think that's true for every industry. It's true for healthcare, which is where we work in, with physician and nursing shortage. So I think having digital tools and AI augment, right, where you don't have people is the way we have to move forward, but do it with balance, which I love those comments from both Kevin and Guy and Drew. Ensure the human is in the loop, train the agents, have governance and oversight, and ensure that people embrace it in terms of how it can improve their lives, their productivity, versus be wary of it as a job killer. I think that's, for me as CMO, that's top of mind, and I hope that'll be valuable for other CMOs as well.
Okay, Guy, bring us home.
We're going to build on a theme here. I agree with everything that was said. I especially like how Kevin framed it. In 2026, focus on the people more than the details of the tech. Let this be a superpower for everybody on your team rather than an existential threat. In talking to hundreds of CMOs, I hear it impacting hiring. I'm hearing a lot less about letting people go. And if folks aren't thinking about that quite as much, that enables psychological safety, which engenders curiosity. And if you then ground the team as they get curious in the fact that core job hasn't changed, we need to go build brands and drive revenue. That hasn't changed. They will then point their energies in the right direction. And if you can, lower the bar for that AI fluency by finding tech that fits easily into your workflows and brings the AI to bear by asking folks questions they are already used to answering.
I love it. All right. Well, there you have it. Easy peasy, 2026, nothing to it. Just get on, build a couple agents and off you go. Keep those great people, get them trained, make them feel loved, set some vision, be a leader, all that stuff. Piece of cake. Anyway, thank you, Guy, Kevin, Andy. You're all great sports. Thank you, audience, for staying with us. Please join us in a few weeks when we'll discuss marketing organization design with James Stanton, Heather Atkins, and Charles Groom. Cue the music. CMO Huddles Studio is produced by Melissa Caffrey. Our production assistants are Laura Parkin and Ishar Cuevas. If you'd like to learn more about CMO Huddles, please visit CMOHuddles.com. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, and until next time, keep on sharing, caring, and daring each other